Good morning, spiritual companions. We are reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Chapter 6, in the company of devotees. Sunday, April 8th, 1883. It was Sunday morning. The master, looking like a boy, was seated in his room, and near him was another boy, his beloved disciple Ramlal. M. entered and saluted the master. Ramlal also was in the room, and Kishori, Manilal Malik, and several other devotees gathered by and by. Manilal Malik, a businessman, had recently been to Benares, where he owned a bungalow. Master, so you have been to Benares. Did you see any holy men there? Manilal, yes, sir. I paid my respects to Trilanga Swami, Bhaskarananda, and others. Trilanga Swami keeps a strict vow of silence. Unlike him, Bhaskarananda is friendly with all. Master, did you have any conversation with Bhaskarananda? Manilal, yes, sir. We had a long talk. Among other things, we discussed the problem of good and evil. He said to me, don't follow the path of evil. Give up sinful thoughts. That is how God wants us to act. Perform only those duties that are virtuous. Master, yes, that is also a path, meant for the worldly minded. But those whose spiritual consciousness has been awakened, who have realized that God alone is real and all else is illusory, cherish a different ideal. They are aware that God alone is the doer, and others are his instruments. Those whose spiritual consciousness has been awakened never make a false step. They do not have to reason in order to shun evil. They are so full of love of God that whatever action they undertake is a good action. They are fully conscious that they are not the doers of their actions, but mere servants of God. Fully awakened souls are beyond virtue and vice. They realize that it is God who does everything. There was a monastery in a certain place. The monks residing there went out daily to beg their food. One day, a monk, while out for his alms, saw a landlord beating a man mercilessly. The compassionate monk stepped in and asked the landlord to stop. But the landlord was filled with anger and turned his wrath against the innocent monk. He beat the monk till he fell unconscious on the ground. Someone reported the matter to the monastery. The monks ran to the spot and found their brother lying there. 4 or 5 of them carried him back and laid him on a bed. He was still unconscious. The other monks sat around him, sad at heart. Some were fanning him. Finally, someone suggested that he should be given a little milk to drink. When it was poured into his mouth, he regained consciousness. He opened his eyes and looked around. One of the monks said, "Let us see whether he is fully conscious and can recognize us." Shouting into his ear, he said, "Revered sir, who is giving you milk?" "Brother," replied the holy man in a low voice, "he who beat me is now giving me milk." But one does not attain such a state of mind without the realization of God. Manilal, sir, what you have just said applies to a man of a very lofty spiritual state. I talked on such topics in a general way with Bhaskarananda. The worship was over in the temples and the bells rang for the food offerings in the shrines. As it was a summer noon, the sun was very hot. The flood tide started to rise in the Ganges, and a breeze came up from the south. Sri Ramakrishna was resting in his room after his meal. Presently, a few elderly members of the Brahmo Samaj arrived. The room was full of devotees. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on his bed, facing the north. He kept smiling and talked to the Brahmo devotees in a joyous mood. Master, you talk glibly about prema. Prema is the very intense form of love of God. But is it such a commonplace thing? There are two characteristics of prema: ecstatic love of God. First, it makes a man forget the world. So intense is his love of God that he becomes unconscious of outer things. Second, he has no feeling of myness toward the body, which is so dear to all. He wholly gets rid of the feeling that the body is the soul. There are certain signs of God realization. A man who longs for God is not far from attaining him. What are the outer indications of such longing? They are discrimination, dispassion, compassion for living beings, serving holy men, loving their company, chanting God's name and glories, telling the truth, and the like. When you see those signs in an aspirant, you can rightly say that for him, the vision of God is not far to seek. The state of the servant's house will tell you unmistakably if his master has decided to visit it. First, the rubbish and jungle around the house are cleared up. Second, the soot and dirt are removed from the rooms. Third, the courtyard floors and other places are swept clean. Finally, the master himself sends various things to the house, such as a carpet, a hubble-bubble for smoking, and the like. When you see these things coming, you conclude that the master will very soon arrive. Devotee: Sir, should one first practice discrimination to attain self-control? Master: that is also a path. It is called the path of vichara, reasoning. But the inner organs are brought under control through the path of devotion as well. Footnote on inner organs: mind, manas; intelligence, buddhi; mind stuff, chitta; and ego, ahamkara. This self-control is rather easily accomplished that way. Sense pleasures appear more and more tasteless as love for God grows. Devotee: how can I develop love for God? Master: repeat his name and sins will disappear. Thus you will destroy lust, anger, and the desire for creature comforts, and so on. Devotee: how can I take delight in God's name? Master: pray to God with a yearning heart that you may take delight in his name. He will certainly fulfill your heart's desire. As is a man's feeling, so is his gain. Once 2 friends were going along a street when they saw some people listening to a reading of the Bhagavata. "Come, friend," said one to the other, "let us hear the sacred book." So saying, he went in and sat down. The second man peeped in and went away. He entered a house of ill fame, but very soon he felt disgusted with the place. "Shame on me," he said to himself. "My friend has been listening to the sacred words about Hari, and see where I am." But the friend who had been listening to the Bhagavata also became disgusted. "What a fool I am," he said. "I have been listening to this fellow's blah blah, and my friend is having a good time." In the course of time, they both died. The messenger of death came for the soul of the one who had listened to the Bhagavata and dragged it off to hell. The messenger of God came for the soul of the other who had been to the house of prostitution and led it up to heaven. Verily, the Lord looks into a man's heart and does not judge him by what he does or where he lives. Everyone can attain knowledge. There are 2 entities: Jivatma, the individual soul, and Paramatma, the supreme soul. Through prayer, all individual souls can be united to the Supreme Soul. Every house has a connection for gas, by which gas can be obtained from the main storage tank of the gas company. Apply to the company and it will arrange for your supply of gas. Then your house will be lighted. In some people, spiritual consciousness has already been awakened, but they have special marks. They do not enjoy hearing or talking about anything but God. They are like the chatak bird, which prays for rainwater, though the 7 oceans, the Ganges, the Jamuna, and other rivers nearby are filled with water. The bird won't drink anything but rainwater, even though its throat is burning with thirst. Bound souls, worldly people, are like silkworms. The worms can cut through their cocoons if they want, but having woven the cocoons themselves, they are too much attached to them to leave them, and so they die there. Free souls are not under the control of woman and gold. There are some silkworms that cut through the cocoon they have made with such great care, but they are few and far between. It is Maya that deludes. Only a few become spiritually awakened and are not deluded by the spell of Maya. They do not come under the control of woman and gold. There are 2 classes of perfect souls, those who attain perfection through spiritual practice and those who attain it through the grace of God. Some farmers irrigate their fields with great labor. Only then can they grow crops. But there are some who do not have to irrigate at all. Their fields are flooded by rain. They don't have to take the trouble to draw water. One must practice spiritual discipline laboriously in order to avoid the clutches of Maya. Those who attain liberation through God's grace do not have to labor, but they are few indeed. Then there is the class of the ever-perfect. They are born every time with their spiritual consciousness already awakened. Think of a spring whose outlet is obstructed. While looking after various things in the garden, the plumber accidentally clears away the obstruction and the water gushes out. People are amazed to see the first manifestations of an ever-perfect soul's zeal for God. They say, "Where was all this devotion and renunciation and love?" The conversation turned to the spiritual zeal of devotees, as illustrated in the earnestness of the gopis of Vrindavan. Ramlal sang, "Thou art my all in all, O Lord, the life of my life, my inmost being. I have none else but Thee in the 3 worlds to call my own. Thou art my peace, my joy, my hope. Thou my support, my wealth, my glory. Thou my wisdom and my strength. Thou art my home, my place of rest, my dearest friend, my next of kin, my present and my future. Thou, my heaven and my salvation. Thou art my scriptures, my commandments. Thou art my ever-gracious Guru. Thou, the spring of my boundless bliss. Thou art the way, and Thou the goal. Thou the adorable one, O Lord. Thou art the mother tender-hearted. Thou art the chastising Father. Thou, the creator and protector. Thou, the helmsman, who dost steer my craft across the sea of life. Master, to the devotees, ah, what a beautiful song. Thou art my all in all. End of today's reading.